Hello, and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have a fantastic and fascinating guest with me today who's got an incredible story to share with us. His name is Jay Ramsden. He is an empty nest transformation coach, personal and executive coach, motivational and keynote speaker, and host of This Empty Nest Life podcast. As the founder of the Empty Nest Coach and This Empty Nest Life, Jay has turned his personal journey of overcoming significant life challenges into a beacon of hope for countless individuals seeking purpose and direction. He has his own experience of going from adversity to adventure, and now he empowers empty nesters and entrepreneurs to climb their own mountains. Jay, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Cheryl. That introduction makes me sound like I'm something special, but I am just a human who's doing life, I think, is what a lot of us are doing the same thing.
Well, I think you're something special, and I love the
Well,
fact that you
thank
have
you.
the climb your own mountains for someone who has been living in Colorado or had been living in Colorado for almost 50 years. That just gives me I can feel the mountain air as I'm just talking right now.
I love it. So the 14ers were kind of like a part of your everyday life then, right?
14ers were not a part of my everyday life, but thank you for asking because I did, while we were out there, I did climb three 14ers, only summited once. And I looked at my husband and I says, and now we're done.
And now we're done. But you had the view of them too, which is just as spectacular. So,
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Nothing like the Colorado Rocky Mountains. They're just fantastic.
hmm.
So tell us your story. I mean, how does somebody get into empty nest coaching? I mean, how did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cheryl. People ask me that, and it's like, oh, you must have like found it, like some like this moment of inspiration that you can help empty nesters. And the truth is, it really found me more
Mm,
than anything else. I was in education for 30 years doing admissions and technology work, and we got out of that when my wife had an opportunity here in Massachusetts, and I was like, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to leave the community I had been in for a long time. And I was like,
mm,
coaching, I want to get into that. I was a psychology major in college, and it's like, I want to help people in a different way. I've been helping people along, just not with this specific type of initiative. And I was just, talking about life in general and positivity and life coaching. But then I was at a stage, empty nesting. I just started talking about that a little bit. And
hmm
people literally came out of the woodwork, or out of the algorithm, I should say, because right, if you're talking about stuff on social media, and it just took off. And I'm like, there's something here. People struggle with that transition. And it is one where people are just like, oh no, empty nesting, it should be popping champagne and travel and cruises and all this amazing stuff. But people struggle with it because there's a lot of human emotion when your
mm,
kids launch. And
mm,
so it found me. I felt called to do it. And that's kind of how I ended up in this space.
mm. So then, okay, you went right from there into coaching then, but you had all this experience in education because, I mean, and that in itself would be a very powerful tool to have in your tool chest as you were starting to develop this new, this new, I don't want to say persona, but this new business and this new way of helping people rather than educating them. You're educating them in a different way of how to approach life at this really tenuous kind of stage of life.
You can say new persona. I literally
hmm
reinvented myself when I left that career. You introduced me as Jay. My name is Jason. That's how I was known in my previous career. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something different to see if I can actually do something different with my life. Some people are like, they hold on to what was for so long,
hmm
and being able to transition out and say, I'm going to see if I can do something different. And that's the path that I went down. And the education piece, you're right. I didn't really get a hold of that until like the last 6 months. I was trying to like reinvent things all the time about empty
hmm
nesting, and I stopped and I thought, I was in schools, and in specifically independent private schools for almost 30 years. And it's like, I saw a lot of parents struggle with that journey. Why don't I tap into what I saw there, what I learned there, and actually make it something real for people today? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's interesting, right? You say, oh, I've been doing empty nest coaching for about 3 years, but I really haven't dove into it except for like the last 6 months because I still was kind of holding off on that old persona and not bringing
Uh-huh.
anything forward with me. And it just kind of hit me. It's like, no, there's more to it. There's more to me. There's more to this process. And I think people even realize when their kids go off to college.
Mhm. Well, I find that fascinating because I mean, I understand, hanging on to that old self or that old life and you want to move forward and you can, but there's still that reluctance of, but I was this
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I
It's
did
the
all
identity
this.
piece.
Yeah, it's so
Hmm.
hard.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think I see the most with folks. And it's moms and dads alike. I think moms probably see it more and more able to talk about it, where
Hmm.
dad's not as open to conversation around it because not always, right? We as adults, we have identities both as parent as also who we are in the workplace if we work,
Hmm.
right? And so sometimes we have two identities, sometimes we have one, sometimes we have three. But in all cases, when anybody asks us what we do or who we are, we point to that identity,
Hmm.
right? And so in the case of parents who kind of get wrapped up in the identity of being a mom or a dad, you get with other people and they're like, oh, well, that's Billy or Susie's mom or dad, and that's how you're known
Hmm.
in your communities, and you hold on to that identity,
Hmm.
and you're like, no, that's who I am, as opposed to being an individual first and the
Hmm.
identity second. And so
Hmm.
once you get wrapped up into the identity piece or the role piece, it's harder to let go because you don't know who you are as a person anymore.
Hmm. Well, and you don't know what to expect.
No, no,
And
you
that
don't.
is, the fear of the unknown.
It is. Yeah. If you think about it, Cheryl, people like when you're a kid, okay, I have friends, then they went to kindergarten. You can see, like, oh, I know what's supposed to happen. I go to elementary school, I'm supposed to go to middle school. I see that transition. People prepare you for that high school, college, the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
marriage, like all of that is kind of mapped out. And
Mm-hmm.
retirement is too. But the
Mm-hmm.
stage, the 15 or 20 years between when the kids launch and when you or your partner retire, that's not mapped out. It's just like this void. And I think that is why I enjoy talking about it, is because not a whole lot of people talk about that void. It's like the kids launch and then we just keep doing what we're doing either at work or
Mm-hmm.
we wait around for what's going on at college, or we wait around for the engagement, we wait around for the wedding, we wait around for the grandkids. Then my we or our partner retires, and then life is supposed to start again. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, it's got to start in this 15 to
Mm-hmm.
20-year gap when you still have the health and the
Mm-hmm.
time. And so that's where I think people get stuck, is there is no map for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guide or blueprint for that.
Well, when you have the time and the energy and the financial availability to be able to explore different things in that stage of life, because prior to that, everything was, the kids come first. And then
Oh,
all
of
of a
course.
sudden, you're back into, oh, okay, well, I've done my job. And now it's my turn. Oh my God, what do I do with this?
It is like when it's your full-time job, whether you
Hmm.
have a job outside of the house and you're, a parent, you like when that ends and the kids are off of college and they're exploring and it's like you go from a full-time job that you've had for 20 some years to kind of like this part-time contracted individual
Hmm.
who you're available when the kids need you. And if that's your identity, then you do a lot of waiting around. Oh, they may need me. I
Yeah.
have to be available for the call or the text or help them navigate X, Y, and Z. You can
Hmm.
still, it's a both and, it's not an either or. You can go live your life and do amazing things and still be available
Hmm.
when they need you, as opposed to
Okay.
waiting to that. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about doing amazing things because this made me, I started having palpitations when I read this part of your bio that you actually climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I did. And, you're in Colorado, you probably knew a lot of people who were like, yep, that's what we do. We go and hit the 14ers and that's what we do before breakfast. And that's how we exercise. And there's people who are like that and they're hikers or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, that was my first hike was Kilimanjaro there. Yeah. See, I love that reaction. It's like people are like, are you insane?
Yes, I was told that I should never play poker because my face is really an open book. And so
I
yes,
love
that
it. I love it.
that just
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, it was at a time it was 3 years ago now. So
Wow.
I was 55 and I had started to take my health more seriously.
Hmm.
But it just, walking and strength training and yoga and
Hmm.
meditation. And my sister-in-law was like, "Hey, do you want to go on an adventure?" And I was said to myself, you know what, I'm at a point in my life I'm gonna say yes to things. And I said, yeah, sure. And what I found is my body was actually built for hiking.
Wow.
Yeah, like I can go up and down in mountains or hike for 20 miles and my body's like, yeah, no problem.
Hmm.
Other things, not so much. If you put me in cold weather in a mountain or the woods, I love it. You put me in, heat and humidity and my body's like, yeah, let's have another time to meet and do things.
Hmm.
So I did it. And that journey, because Kilimanjaro has four different climates attached to it. You do start off in a rainforest, which nearly like put me under. Like, I'm not sure if I can keep going because my body doesn't
Wow.
like that part. Then it
Hmm.
cools down and you get into different types of climates. And I excelled. And I noticed everybody else who was in much better shape than me, people who were from Colorado, who are hikers, they struggled with the altitude. And for whatever reason, my body's like, yeah, no problem. Not a problem. We'll keep going. And I got down off the mountain and kind of had time to think. And I was like, what got me to the top was every step has purpose. That's what I said to myself over and over and over again. When I didn't think I could take another step. Nope, this next one has purpose. This next step has intention. This next step has purpose. And it's become my life motto. Every step
Hmm.
has purpose. So much so I like literally have it. I have Kilimanjaro on one arm and every step has purpose on my other forearm tattooed.
Wow.
Because it's like as a story if I put my arms together, but it's a reminder to me like, yeah, I can do hard things.
Hmm.
And I never realized I had been doing hard things my whole life. This is just another example of it.
Hmm.
And so it was an amazing journey. And I am now in love with hiking. I'm trying to do the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers. They're not 14ers, but there's 48 4,000 footers there, and it's a thing.
Hmm.
And so, like, that's what I'm working on now.
Wow, that's just awesome. I'm still trying to visualize this Kilimanjaro thing. One of my closest friends, this years ago, she actually did climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and her description of it was that, especially toward the end, she says, on her hands and knees, just crawling up the rest of the mountain, and just throwing up and but just kept on going because like you said, and I love how you said that every step has purpose, and
Hmm.
everything that we do in life, that's a fantastic metaphor for life.
Yeah, it is. And I've kind of embraced it. And your friend's not wrong.
Hmm.
At the very peak, there's a sub summit that you
Oh.
reach, and then there's another. And it takes about maybe 45 minutes to an hour. It's not far, but that's how long it takes you to actually walk in that altitude. And I
Hmm.
literally said to myself, 50 steps and I can take a break. 40 steps, I can take a break. Like as you get closer and closer, 30 steps, I can take a break. And I would just stop and breathe for a minute and then do the next set of steps and the next set of steps. And then you see the summit and like the adrenaline kicks in a little bit and you can
Hmm.
go a little bit quicker. But she's not wrong. Like
Yeah.
when you get to the top and you see it and you want to get there, you do anything you can to reach it.
Wow, that's some determination. And I really applaud that, and the courage too that it takes to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Hmm. Yeah, and just think about what you can do if you're like, I can do hard things, just as a thought.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're faced with hard things every single day of our lives. It's not maybe
Absolutely.
climbing, Mount Kilimanjaro, but, it can feel like it sometimes when we're
Hmm.
overwhelmed with stress, anxiety, and, it's just seems like the world's kind of going a little crazy these days. So you
Absolutely.
have to really, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
ground
I mean,
yourself.
I chose to literally climb a mountain, but people climb figurative mountains every single day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sometimes just getting out of bed is kind of like climbing a
It
mountain.
is. It
I
is.
know.
Absolutely.
So then, when did you decide to start? Okay, you picked. I love the name of the empty nest transformation coach, and I love the This Empty Nest Life podcast. Really using that name. I mean, it says it all.
It does. It's kind of all encompassing. It kind of
Mm-hmm.
is not like just something specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, it's this life. And
Mm-hmm.
that can be translated however you want by anyone, right? The way that I choose to live my emptiness life versus somebody else is can be completely different, but it's still a period of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? That we're in. And what I like about the podcast specifically is called This Emptiness Life, but that's not what it's always been. So
Yeah.
I just on New Year's Eve this past year, I celebrated the 5th anniversary of the show.
Nice.
But it started off as it was called Positivity on Fire. That was the first name of the show. And it launched December 31st of 2020 because Cheryl, what else do you do during a pandemic but launch a podcast? You may have done the same thing. I don't know.
No, I already
Um,
had the podcast when
there you
COVID
go.
hit. But then what you do
Yeah.
is you write a book. That's what you do.
There
You
you
do
go.
your
You
podcast.
pivoted, right? Yeah.
Yeah, write a
Yeah.
book, and yeah,
Write a
that was
book.
really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was just me trying to spread some positivity in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly thereafter, I pivoted, and the show was called Intentionally Curious for a little bit because
Ooh.
that's where I was in my life. I was being
Mm-hmm.
intentionally curious about what comes next. It kind of aligned with when my wife got a promotion and I was pivoting out of education. And then when I started feeling the call for empty nesters finding me, it was like, you know what, this show is going to be different. And I put it on hiatus for 2 years because I wasn't sure where it fit when I started
Mm-hmm.
coaching empty nesters. And I was like, oh, this is it. This empty
Mm-hmm.
nest life. And then
Excellent.
it happened to just be the podcast. And I love, I'm sure you do, just like us talking right now. When people come on the show, I learn so much.
So
And so
much.
that's, yeah. And it's just a gift to be able to have a conversation with somebody. So I really do appreciate you having me on the show and having a conversation. I think it's just like the greatest gift. So,
Oh, well, thank you so much because it's a gift for me because I get to learn a lot of really great things. And, tonight when I'm going to sleep, I'll just imagine Mount Kilimanjaro and I'm going to climb it to the top and I'll wake up in the morning and go, yeah, I did
yeah, I
that.
did it. It
Yeah.
works.
Well, if you can imagine it, you can do it, right? But
That is
I
true.
don't
I
I don't
agree.
see it in my future anytime soon. Have to say that.
But you never know.
Mhm.
Never know.
So you actually have had a significant amount of challenge in your life as far as adversity.
Yeah. Yes. It's interesting. I, when I first started like coaching and talking about my story, I didn't talk about any of it because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, I was like, it happened and it happened for a reason. And I do believe things happen in our lives for a
Mm-hmm.
reason, not premeditated or predestined, but it happened. And therefore I have to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a couple of things. The first was, gosh, it's almost 20 years ago. It'll be 20 years ago next year, where we lost our house to a fire and the kids were little. They were
Wow.
they were 9 and 7. It was right after spring break. It was the Monday after spring break, and they were going to the school that my wife and I worked in. And I got a call from a neighbor, and I ignored the call because he
Oh.
always called for tech support. I was a technology guy. I'm like, oh, he's probably just calling to ask about internet at home or something. And he called again, and I ignored it again, and he called a third time, and I'm like, well, maybe I should pick up.
Oh.
And I did. And he's like, hey, I just want to let you know your house is on fire. Well, if you can imagine being on the other end
No.
of that phone call, hey, your house is on fire. My wife worked at me. I didn't even call her anything. I literally ran to the car and started driving to the house. And so she found her way home from somebody else. And in hindsight, it was like, oh, why didn't I call her and tell her? And my brain was just like, get home.
Right.
Because we had my mother-in-law, her partner, and my brother-in-law, his wife, and a new baby
Oh.
staying with us. They weren't at the house. They'd gone out for lunch.
Oh God.
But now kind of the mindset of
Right.
I just need to get home and find out what's going on.
Right.
So, and I can still remember, you know, this is where I kind of like have my mindset now about people who drive really fast on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You see them and oftentimes we're like, oh, that person, they're out of control, they're a jerk or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going 100 miles an hour down the highway to get home, and I could see our house was like one part of Raleigh and the school was another, and it was like a highway that bended, and I could, as soon as I got on the highway, I could see the smoke.
Oh
I knew
God.
that was our house. And I just fly down. I get there, trying to turn onto our street, and somebody's like, nope, and I'm like, no, that's my house. All right, come on. And I get there, and it's
Oh.
literally just engulfed.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
What caused it? Do they
they
know? I
don't
mean,
know. It was a house that was 4 years old. They didn't ever come to a determination of what it was that
wow.
actually caused the fire. And so, but by the grace of God, no one was home, no one was injured. The fire department was fantastic. Once they learned nobody was inside and there was no recovery after that, they started taking stuff out of the first floor into our
Oh.
neighbors' garages. And so, it was like that was one of the first times I ever had a panic attack, like
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks or 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for people who have panic attacks all the time. I only ever had one, and it was because of that. And it was so debilitating. It's like, how do you figure out what comes next?
Right.
But we did. You rebound, you rebuild, you figure out what life looks like. The community was super supportive. And so, you spring back. And it worked out. We rented a home in the neighborhood we were living in to try and keep things somewhat calm for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
The school community was fantastic. And then we ultimately found a home that we had lived maybe 25 minutes from where we were working. We found a phenomenal home a mile away. It's where we lived for the next 15 years. And so you made new memories. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just kind of how it goes. But it's all about, like, you think about it, go back to the every step has purpose, is like
Mm-hmm.
there was, it happened for a reason, right? And the reason was for my wife and I and our kids to learn, like, we don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm. When I was a little girl, I was 4 years old, and my dad wasn't home. It was just my mom, me, and my two older sisters. My mother had three little girls in 4 years. So we were like real close in age. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There goes my
Anyhow,
poker face. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, good one. Don't play poker. But anyhow, I remember, it was beautiful, beautiful. It was it was March, and so it was dark. We were in Western Pennsylvania. It was cold, blah, blah, blah. That's still the middle of winter. And I had gotten into my pajamas and I just went to my mom, who was in the dining room. She was typing doing some kind of work. And so I went to her so she could snap up my little pajamas in the back. So my other older sister was still in our bedroom. The three of us shared a room. And the other older sister was in the kitchen. And as my mother was snapping up my pajamas, three explosions rocked the house. There were
Mm.
three loud explosions and then three smaller ones, and it knocked my mother off of the chair. It flew me up in the air and did like a backward somersault. You could hear, we were all screaming, my sisters are screaming, and we all run, and my mom's like, the house is blowing up, get your coats, we need to get out of here. And as she was shuffling us out the front door, she turned and she looked, and she says, oh, girls, it's okay, it's just a car. She could see the tail lights. A car had come flying through our living room window all the way up to the
Oh my
stone
goodness.
fireplace.
Ah,
And thank God no one was,
in the
there. I
living
mean,
room. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, it was always kept for company, keep the living room nice. But my mom and I were right there in the dining room. And it was something that to this day, okay, I was 4 years old. I'm now in my late 60s. And to this day, I always use my emergency brake because it
Mm,
was our neighbor. We lived on a hill, and they were just a little bit higher than us across the street. And this was in the day where you didn't have automatic, garage door openers.
mm-hmm.
So he and his family went out to dinner. He, got out of the car. Everybody got out of the car so he could open up the garage door and park the car, but he didn't put on his emergency brake. And as he, opened up the garage door and turned around, and they looked in horror and watched their station wagon roll down their driveway,
Oh,
bounce across the street, and fly into our window.
wow.
And like I
Wow.
said, to this day, I don't care how flat the surface is that I'm parking on. I always use my emergency brake. And my
Mm,
husband laughs at me and he says, "You're not on a hill." Da, da, da." I'm like,
doesn't
"Don't even
matter.
go there."
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Oh
those
my
things stick
goodness.
with you.
They do. Oh, absolutely they do.
Yeah, but no one was hurt. Everybody was okay. Um, my father fixed fixed the house, so yeah, it was all good.
Yeah. But it all if those type of things stay with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that you take away from those things as a lesson,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yours
Mm-hmm.
happened to be put on the emergency brake.
Mm-hmm.
And like you if you were on my show, and I'd love to have you as a guest on my show, because I think we'd have another fantastic conversation, it would be where do you put the emergency brake on in your life now?
Ooh, because you can put it on and just leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
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 Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's how I became a ninja, was finally letting go of the emergency brake. So,
I love it. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah. So that is quite the story. Okay, so let's just a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about your business and how people, when they come to you, and I love this that you are a beacon of hope, especially for this stage of life or this time of life. And when people come to you, are they just really like, I don't know what to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah, it depends on where they are in their journey when they come. Sometimes they do come and they're like, I just don't know what comes next,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are struggling with the questions of what now and what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my work is to kind of help pull that out of them. I
Mm-hmm.
totally believe 100% all the answers are inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
but fear kind of keeps us from looking at that as like what does come next, because you were a parent, you knew exactly kind of your role and how to take care of your kids. And while there's no playbook for it per se, you figured it out as you went.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere when they launch, you're afraid to figure out stuff for yourself anymore. You're really good at figuring it out for other people. You stop figuring it out for yourself. So that's kind of where we start. Other people are kind of beyond that. And they're like, here's what I'm thinking. And I don't know if I have the courage to do what comes next.
Mm.
Right. And so when we talk about courage, you don't do things to gain courage. You don't gain courage and then do things. You do things
Right.
to gain courage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then sometimes people are even further beyond that. And it's more, I'm several years into my empty nest, and now I have sons and daughters-in-law, and the dynamics of family, and what does
Mm-hmm.
that look like, and how does that affect us? And then even others are like, I'm at the tail end of my career. The kids are fully launched. Things are good. And I don't know what comes next from there.
Mm-hmm. Is there a lot of fear
Oh,
related to that? Because
mm-hmm.
I would imagine so, even though, yay, I'm retiring, this is going to be great. And then it's like, ooh, but what happens then?
Yeah. And that's another identity transition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People, when you work, again, we talk about it. Um, if you work outside the home, you have a role and you have a title,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your title is how you identify.
Mm-hmm.
And when that disappears, it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens for women, they're much better because they know how to build community,
Mm-hmm.
right? They've done it all along. So when they leave the workplace, they've already have a community they can come back to.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily tied to the workplace, but men, they struggle with that because
Mm-hmm.
their community is at work. Their title is at work. They come home to a partner or spouse who's like, this is this is my space and now you're going to be in it all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like, who are you and how does that work? And
Mm-hmm.
the mechanics of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, but it is still an identity transition
Mm-hmm.
of who am I, what does life look like, what am I going to do now.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens all along. It goes back to the example of the school piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you go from lower to middle school, it's a chance to reinvent yourself. When you go from middle to
Mm-hmm.
high school, it's a chance to reinvent yourself. You go to college, it's a chance to reinvent yourself. These other times are still an opportunity to reinvent yourself. You weren't always a ninja, right?
I think I might have been. Yeah,
Inside. Yeah, yeah,
yes, I
yeah,
definitely have the mindset. Even when I was very young, if you would have said that to me then, I would have laughed. And even when I started my training, I laughed a lot, and
yeah,
when I wasn't
yeah,
crying. So yeah.
yeah. But somewhere along the way, you or someone else pulled it out of you,
Oh yeah.
right? And now it's become your identity. I mean, it's
Mhm,
part of who you are. It's part of your podcast and your book, and
mhm,
it's no different.
mhm,
Everybody has these identity transitions. It's just a matter or not. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to pull it out of yourself.
mhm. Sometimes that's easier said than done.
Oh, that's life, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
it's easier said than done.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So I'm just curious. Have you written a book, or are you planning on writing a book?
I have 17,000 words in a
Yes.
Google Doc.
Yes. I knew
But
it. I just
yeah,
knew it.
but it's one of those things where it's like, is it how it's supposed to be?
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because I got approached a year or so, or a year and a half ago, from an editor who asked, "Hey, do you have a book in you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I have a book in me." So we went through the whole process of doing a proposal and back and forth, and it wasn't what they envisioned. And sometimes when people have something they envision and they tell you, your
Right.
brain goes, "Well, maybe it's not right."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a coach and I have all these tools and I think about things differently than a lot of folks, but still, it's like, ooh, maybe it's not exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah, no,
So,
totally get that. Yeah, I've
yeah,
written two
yeah,
so far, and I'm struggling with the third one. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to my editor tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes.
there you
Um,
go.
yeah, but I always say that writing a book really isn't for the faint of heart, but I
Mm.
believe that there is at least one book or more in each and every one of us, and it's just a
Yeah.
wonderful way to be able to get your vision, your philosophy, your knowledge, and to, provide people with some skill sets that they can start thinking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And the working title is called Navigating the Challenge of Change. That's the working
Ooh.
title. Yeah, because for a long time, I used to use this in education all the time, is, we're faced with challenges all the time. We're faced with change all the time.
Hmm.
And if you look at the word challenge, right? Can you see that word in your brain?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's surrounded by the word change.
Hmm.
CHLLENGE. Change is on the outside of challenge. And so I do believe, like, every challenge we face, we have to change in some way. And
Hmm.
every change we face, we're going to be challenged.
Hmm.
So they're bonded together. So the working title is Navigating the Challenge of Change, but I
Hmm.
haven't gone down the path of what it looks like. I am tempted to, like, publicly drip sections of it to see if people, like, resonate with it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Okay, so just my first book, that one over there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was my first book. I was a train wreck. It was like, gosh, do I really want to do this? I don't know. One of my sisters talked me into it, and she's like, oh yeah, you really need to write a book. And I'm like, well, if you think writing a book is such a good idea, why don't you do it? And she's like, no, no,
you
no.
you go first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And she says, you write really well, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? And she says, oh, I've read your blog. And I was like, oh. And I went through my blog posts for that first book, and it was like this. I mean, it was kind of almost like not an outline. I wouldn't say that, but I had enough posts that that would be like, the start of a book. And then I did the same thing with the second book, and that one was COVID. And I had even more blog posts about my ninja life back then. So yeah, I mean, you just write them in little, snippets, little blog posts, or little, to your community. It's a great way to get started.
Yeah, yeah. I've been toying with it, but I haven't really had the, like, I just said it, first word that popped in my head. Haven't had the courage to do it. And it's not the courage. I got to do the action to build the courage. Yeah.
Hmm.
You got to take my own
Understood.
advice.
I, I just
Yeah.
I recently interviewed a lady by the name of Bernice McDonald, very sweet woman, and she's a courage coach.
Mm.
And so we talked, a lot about fear and all that. She's a great guest, and she has her own podcast. I was on her show last week, and she says fear. She says you have to make friends with your fear, and then it loses power over you. And she gave her fear a name, so she calls it Fred.
Oh, yeah.
And
Make it part of who you are. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and Fred sits on her shoulder, and every now and again she just whacks him off and says, "No, no, no, not today."
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I had a guest on my show that says fear stands for face everything and react.
Ooh, that's good too. Yep.
Right. So it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I can face Fred and get rid of him, kick him to
Yeah.
the curb, and keep moving forward.
I love that. Oh my goodness. So, how can people get a hold of you? Tell us how they can connect with you, where they can find you, if they would like to work with you. Anything, if you have any special events coming up, anything you want to promote would be
Yeah.
great.
I mean, they can find me at thisemptinesslife.com.
Hmm.
That's my website.
Hmm.
And on Instagram and TikTok, I'm the dot emptiness dot coach.
Hmm.
It's where I live. Also on LinkedIn, I've got a weekly newsletter there if people want to go down that path. So the different flavors, different styles on each platform, but all talking about the same thing. It's the emptiness transition and how you can transform your life during this phase in life.
Hmm.
And if when your kids are launching, you should be launching too. So you can also Google Jay Ramsden, and I will take up the whole first page of Google. So
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you ever have people come to you who aren't empty nesters, but still have this life transition change?
Oh, absolutely. I've had parents come to me whose kids are still in high school,
Mm,
either like freshman and junior, that kind of combination. And they're just looking like, how do I let go of control a little bit? Even though when they're driving me crazy, right? They're not doing the things
yeah.
they're supposed to be doing and we're struggling here. Like I have had folks like that. And
Hmm.
I've like my oldest client ever was 75. He's a lifelong entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And he was looking for like, well, what comes happen after I sell my business? So almost like when that baby launches, how do I
Hmm.
prepare for that? And
Hmm.
so it's been an amazing and interesting combination of people who I've worked with through the years, and
Hmm.
they all come at different phases. But the one thing is always there's some transition happening that they
Hmm.
have questions about. That's
Hmm.
the key.
Well, I didn't tell you this because you said, I'm here in Colorado and I'm not anymore. My husband and I left Denver in September and moved to a small, vibrant, but really quirky little town
Mm,
in Missouri. So that was a huge, I mean, it's been great, but it has been such an adjustment and it's been an adventure. There are no mountains, but that's okay. I'm learning to deal with that. But yeah,
mm.
it's just been it's been interesting.
I would imagine there's been a lot of questions that have come up too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Every
Yeah,
day. So
every day.
we've been here for 6 months now. And, there's still, every time I think I've got this, I've got it all figured out. And it's like, damn it, I don't.
There it is. And one thing, that's life, right? Is like when we think like we're on a good thing, a good pace, right? And something
Yeah.
else sneaks in and kind of makes us pivot or change a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, Jay, it has been an honor having you on the show. I love your story. I love your enthusiasm. And I really am looking forward to that book coming out eventually. So
Well, thank you, Cheryl.
you have to promise me that you will let me know when you do get the book out and you can come back on the show and you can promote it and you can talk about what the process was like.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. Thank you for that push and for the opportunity to come back again.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And do share this episode with everyone you know because, we are always in a bit of a change, a state of flux where things are changing. and a lot of life's challenges, and we can all use a little bit of help and guidance along the way because sometimes life is a challenge, but it is always wonderful. And remember, I'm going to go back to that. I have written it down. Remember, every step has a purpose. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.